which is a members' business debate on motion 11509 in the name of Ruth Maguire on International Insights, a Model for Scotland. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put, and I would ask those members who would wish to speak in the debate to please press the request to speak buttons, and I call on Ruth Maguire to open the debate. Ms Maguire.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To truly realise our shared ambition of eradicating male violence against women and girls, Scotland needs a progressive legal model to tackle prostitution, a model that shifts the burden of criminality off victims of sexual exploitation and onto those who perpetrate and profit from this abuse. To prevent sexual exploitation and deliver justice to victims, the Scottish Government must decriminalise victims of sexual exploitation by repealing Section 46 of the Civic Government Scotland Act 1982, wipe previous convictions, outlaw online pimping, criminalise paying for sex and provide comprehensive, resourced support and exiting services for victims of sexual exploitation. To do this effectively, it will be important to learn from international examples. I thank members from across the Chamber for signing my motion and helping secure this debate, and I'm particularly grateful to those who are contributing today, including the Minister for Community Safety, who I know to be fully and passionately committed to women's equality and ensuring Scotland is safer for all. I'd like to echo the thoughts of Diane Martin, CBA Chair of Model for Scotland, when she says that she hopes this report gives confidence to Scottish lawmakers that the international evidence base is there and the time for change in Scotland is now. A Model for Scotland is an alliance of survivors, organisations and frontline services calling for the progressive model that I outlined previously. I should declare an interest as a member of the steering group of that organisation. The prostitution trade is transnational and countries face common challenges in tackling commercial sexual exploitation. The Model for Scotland report International Insights provides helpful international evidence with key learning from Sweden, Ireland, France, Iceland and the United States. In 1999, Sweden became the first country to combat demand for prostitution by criminalising paying for sex, whilst decriminalising victims of sexual exploitation. Evidence shows that the proportion of men paying for sex has dropped, public attitudes have changed, and the law acts as a deterrent to sex trafficking. Key learning from Sweden includes how essential it is to train law enforcement agencies to ensure effective enforcement, and also that the development of a nationwide network of support and exiting services is crucial. In 2017, Ireland criminalised paying for sex and decriminalised selling sex. Early observations reveal a shift in the burden of criminality from the victims to the exploiters. Women in prostitution report feeling more able to disclose violence against them to the police, and there is a high level of public understanding that prostitution is a form of sexual exploitation. In Ireland, partnership working was crucial to the adoption and implementation of the laws, and the provision of support and exiting services for victims, a vital component of that law reform. In 2016, France decriminalised soliciting for prostitution, criminalised paying for sex, and established comprehensive support provisions for victims of sexual exploitation. The same legislation established a national policy on prevention, education and training to prevent sexual exploitation. The law resulted in an immediate change in law enforcement activity, shifting from a focus on penalising victims of sexual exploitation to holding sex buyers to account. Exiting prostitution programmes have proved successful, and there is a high level of public support for France's new abolitionist laws to combat prostitution. In France, strong political leadership was pivotal to securing legal reform. Iceland criminalised paying for sex in 2009. Selling sex had been decriminalised in 2007. In response to that legislation, the focus of policing shifted towards targeting and holding accountable those who create demand for prostitution. There is strong support amongst the general public for Iceland's prostitution laws. Key learning from there was that the prostitution trade should be tackled as part of broader efforts to combat commercial sexual exploitation in its entirety. United States made it a criminal offence for pimping websites, those which advertise individuals for prostitution, to operate in 2017. That new legislation established criminal and civil liability for websites that promote and facilitate prostitution, and led to a significant shrinkage of the sexual exploitation marketplace. Within 48 hours of the law being passed, major websites stopped hosting prostitution adverts. A year after the legislation was passed, the sexual exploitation advertising market remained significantly disrupted, with a reduction in demand and failure of any pimping websites to recapture the market dominance of the biggest pimping website to previously operate. Key learning from there is that actions against those websites are crucial in reducing demand and deterring sex trafficking. Presiding Officer, I know how proud my government is to take forward a human rights-based approach in policy making and legislation, and I welcome that we'll have a Scottish human rights bill coming soon. Scotland has multiple international obligations to discourage demand for sexual exploitation. The Palermo Protocol, CEDAW, and the Council of Europe Convention on Action Against Trafficking in Human Beings. Speaking about France, I spoke of the political leadership that was required to make those changes. I think I'll give the last words to the former Minister for Women's Rights in France, Najat Vallaud-Belkacem. She said, "It is not only a question of fighting against violence, the specific oppression represented by prostitution, but it's also about teaching the principle that a woman's body is not for sale, that it is not an object, that a woman is not a commodity." Presiding Officer.